something about my culture. Later on, the next slide, when I was 24, I was honored to present to a Rotary conference in Wales. At that time, what I decided to share with them was projects that the Rotary Act, my Rotary Act club did in Jordan, and I also shared with them like touristic aspects of Jordan. And now, 15 years later on, slide, being here, I really thought about what I'm going to share with you. So I wanted you to get the essence of Jordan, and I think that lies within the stories of the people who live in Jordan. My story, my friends, my family story. So today I'm going to share with you stories. The purpose is for you to see Jordan through the stories of the people. So maybe I should do like. So before I share my story, I just need to give you a bit of a context. I was born to parents who are semi-mixed race. So my mother is half Palestinian, half Armenian. I'm going to talk about that more. And my dad is Jordanian. Both mother and father are Jordanian. And both my parents are Christians, but in Jordan, it doesn't matter what the mother's religion or nationality, it's what the father is. So I belong to my father's religion, so I was born Christian. And Christianity, by the way, is 5% of the population of Jordan. I was born to parents who are very hardworking, very educated parents. I'm going to talk more about them, but one thing from my father, and that's just, I think, in his head, that because we are a minority, he wanted us to work hard and kind of any opportunity for education, for learning, he really pushed us to do. He's so strict, my dad, but you know, if I couldn't go out with my friends, but if he was fine with me going to England to get my master's. So, you know, there's this drive for education. So yes, my story started almost 40 years ago in Jordan, which is one of the 22 countries of the Arab world. It's in the Middle East. Jordan is a very small country and very poor country. Jordan is actually a little bit smaller than Maine, with population that's 5 times the population of Maine. So the population has an interesting story in Jordan. And when I was a little girl, I do remember saying the population is 4 million. And now only 4 million people live in the capital, Amman. So this is, Jordan is considered to be one of the biggest refugee camps in the world. And this is a Syrian refugee camp on the border of Syria and Jordan. It's Al-Za'atari camp, and it is one of the biggest Syrian refugee camp in the world. So Jordan has always been the safe place for all these countries around Jordan. People came to Jordan for safety. Now, 1/3 of the population of Jordan is not Jordanian, and will never be, probably. So, for example, my Iraqi friend and her husband, they moved to Jordan in the 1990s during the Gulf War. And until now, she is not a Jordanian citizen. She works there. She struggles with working there because the priority is for Jordanians. And then the picture underneath, my covered best friend is from Palestinian origins. Now, Jordan and Palestine have a very, very strong relationship. So Palestinians can get Jordanian citizenship, but not other nationality. So she's a Jordanian citizen. My other friend on the right her father is Lebanese, mother Jordanian. She cannot get a citizenship. My daughters will never be Jordanian. And that really makes me sad. Now the King of Jordan is trying to change this. So recently they allowed that non-Jordanian kids can get a permanent residence, but I need to live in Jordan to give them that card. Too bad for Jordanians. They can't have my kids. Well, the question that I get a lot is Jordan safe? But before I answer this is a picture of Jordan now. That's what we call spring in Jordan. Not this spring, that's not spring. So this is actually taken by my friend this week. And people also ask me about the weather in Jordan. We do have 4 seasons. We have snow. Sometimes, like maybe for 2-3 weeks it will snow hard. And I have a sad thing to share with you that I lost my uncle in a snowstorm in Jordan because people are not equipped to deal with snow. And every year, I mean, they know it's gonna snow, but they act like they're surprised. So there's probably 1 plow in Amman. Meanwhile, here everybody has a plow in their house. So there is winter, rains a lot in the winter. I've never seen rain in the summer, which is different here. And spring, which is very beautiful, it's really 3 weeks. And then you get to see the brown shade, different shades of brown again after 3 or 4 weeks. So back to the question, is Jordan really safe? I have to tell you, I have never felt unsafe in Jordan. Like, I was born listening to the news of the conflict around Jordan, Iran and Iraq, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, now after the Arab Spring, Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, and all these countries are places that I visited or my family visited, but I never felt unsafe, except when I was visiting here in the summer. And I heard the news about ISIS in 2014, and I panicked, and I did not want to go back. I did not feel safe listening to the media. Now I called my parents and my friends, and they reassured me that everything is fine in Jordan, and we went back, and everything was fine. So I guess I feel like it's my duty being here to just convey the truth about Jordan and the Middle East. So it's a very, very safe country. One of the reasons Jordan is safe is, I think, in my opinion, is the royal family. So this is our king, King Abdullah, and his wife, Queen Rania. And the person on the left is the Royal Highness Hussein, who was a student in our school. So Jordan is a monarchy. So the king and all his relatives, they descend from Prophet Muhammad, who is the prophet of Islam, which is the major religion in Jordan. So I guess there's a lot of respect for the king being like a religious symbol in a way, other than him being a leader and a very modern leader. Also, the king's mother is English. So we have great relationship with England, with America. Jordan and America have always been like really good friends. So that helps to keep Jordan stable. And I think America needs to have Jordan stable because there are a lot of military actions that happens in Jordan, but that, you know, it helps keep the region safe. So that's one reason. Another reason is the Jordanian intelligence. They're actually a very, very advanced and strong intelligence in the world. So they make a joke about every 2 person in Jordan, the third is a secret service. And you know what? Like, maybe people sometimes complain, but to be honest with you, that's what's keeping us safe. That they know everything, and there's a line we can't cross about, you know, we can't talk about the royal family in a negative way, just to keep this respect. But it is a safe country, although it's a very, very poor country. The king has managed to always find ways to keep the country moving forward. And as Chris and Henry read in my bio, there were so many initiatives done by the royal family that I was honored to be part of. And so they're always willing to support education and art, and they're a very educated family. So the capital of Jordan is Amman. It's a cosmopolitan city. You'll find everything in Amman. Within a drive of 10 to 15 minutes, you can go from the very poorest area to the very richest. You might not even know that you're in Amman. There are so many cuisines and restaurants, and now the art is like flourishing in Amman. When I was studying at the university, we didn't have a lot of the art scene, and now there are so many exhibitions, museums, music bands. So I see that Jordan is going forward now, while I'm not living there. So I want to share with you a little clip about Amman. It will start. I'm going to just comment a little bit. So, I live in Amman most of my life. My family lived there. Something weird is happening. Okay. So Amman is located on 7 hills. This is not what the video looks like. I will send it to you guys to watch. Traffic is a big problem in Amman with 4 million people. It's really hard to find a way driving in Amman. Yeah, it's not playing well, but it's fine. This is downtown Amman, and it looks old and it has its own flavor. We do have traffic lights in Amman. This policeman is just there when there's a lot of congestion. Okay, the video is not working properly. That's fine, we can just go to the next slide. So I'm gonna send you the video. It's really interesting, and I think you're gonna get a feel of what Amman looks like and feels like. And people in Amman, you know, a lot of people speak English as like a second language. So a lot of tourists feel comfortable in Amman because everybody can communicate, and I think they're very friendly to tourists. I actually have to say something that like people get excited to see like Americans in Jordan, and they just want to speak English to them. So whenever we go, everybody just goes to Chris to talk to him because, you know, they feel proud that we have guests from America. So I think it's a very hospitable culture. But I'm not from Amman. I'm originally from another city. It's called As-Salt. It's like half an hour drive from Amman. And it's a beautiful city with old buildings that, like, the stones look yellowish. I heard this story, I'm not sure it's true, but I'm gonna share it with you. In 1920, when Jordan became Transjordan, they wanted a capital for Jordan, and they wanted As-Salt to be the capital. However, the men of As-Salt, which are known to be stubborn, they did not like that. They did not want the army to look at the women of Jordan. So they were very protective of their women, so they actually didn't like kick them out, and now Amman is the capital. I can only confirm that people from As-Salt are stubborn, and not me, I'm not. So this is As-Salt, and that's where my father is from. So this is my father's family. That's a drawing I did for my grandfather. He died before I even met him, or like my dad was 15 years old when he died. And then my grandmother, she passed away a couple of years ago. She was 14 when she got married, and he was 40. Don't judge me. At that time, it was very, very normal for 14-year-old girls to get married. My grandmother used to brag about how she finished 6th grade, and it was like the biggest achievement women can get at that time. Nowadays, it's changed. All the women I know went to college. I mean, nobody gets married at 14. That I know of. Maybe in villages, maybe they still, but I don't think that there's a law that stops them, but I think there's awareness that, you know, like under 18 people don't get married now. The average age now for marriage is 24. I was 33 when I got married, which is not normal, and people thought I'm hopeless or whatever, like they gave up on me until Chris found me. And by the way, when I introduced Chris to my family or talked about him, the first question was, is he Christian? And that's a very, like, for my family and in the culture, we coexist with Muslims. My best friends are Muslims. Some of them are covered, some of them are not. We don't see that on a day-to-day. You know, I don't look at a person and think religion until it comes to marriage. Muslims marry Muslims, Christians marry Christians. That's the norm. However, in Islam, as a religion, a Muslim man can marry a Christian woman, a Jewish woman, and a Muslim woman, because the kids are going to be Muslims, like the dad. But Muslim women can only marry Muslim men. Now, this idea in Islam makes Christians feel very protective of their women. So nobody marries different religion. However, my mother's side, they are like rebels, maybe. So my cousin got married to a Muslim. Nobody knows anything about her. She just vanished. Unfortunately, I heard it. I heard my mother say, "Oh, I wish she died." I mean, it's that big in Jordan to marry from your religion. Nobody knows anything about her. Her parents, her own parents, had to secretly talk to her after, because the rest of the family, they actually threatened to kill her. And I'm talking about a family who are educated, but this has nothing to do with education. It's just part of the culture. And also, my mother's side, my uncle got married to a Muslim woman. He had to convert. And again, I don't know anything about him. He just, again, vanished. So this is still not, Jordan is not progressive in that way. That's my father in the middle. So that's my father and my mother. They actually fell in love. So one generation later, it wasn't arranged marriage. They fell in love. And I find it strange that, like, his family wanted him to marry his cousin. Again, don't judge me. It still happens. And the reason, you know why, is to keep the inheritance in the family, so that the same family will still own the same lands, because people own lands in Jordan. But my dad did not want to marry his cousin. She doesn't talk to him till now. And he chose my mother, who is Palestinian Armenian. And that was considered like you're marrying a foreigner, although she has like a Jordanian nationality. And they also commented on her color of skin. She was a little bit darker than my dad, but that was also the comment, like, she is darker, like, how can you marry her? But look how beautiful I am. But, so he did marry her, and they met in the hospital in Jordan. So things change really fast within generations. Back to my father's family, which I also have an interesting story. Again, I don't know if it's true or not. My great-great-great-grandfather was a shepherd, and he was lost one night, and he didn't find his way home. So he stayed in this cave. And it says that Saint George, who people really believe in him in Jordan, he appeared to him and protected him, and the next morning he went back home. So it was like a miracle that he was not eaten by wolves. So this is actually a church that's where I was born, in my neighborhood. And it's called Al-Khadr Church, which means the green. And my family, I'm Rubba Haddad Al-Khadr, which means I'm from that awesome family. Now, is this true? I don't know. But people in Jordan, they're not just only like called Christians, like they have faith in miracles. They are willing to travel to places because they heard that like a saint appeared or Virgin Mary appeared. They still have that strong faith in miracles. So this church, people come from all around the world. It's like a pilgrim place for them, and they come because they believe it's going to help them. And that's where I got baptized, and it's like next door to where my house was in Assal. Thank you. So my mother's side of the story, I call it the story of refugees. So this is my grandfather, and that's my grandmother. And they have a story of the Downton Abbey of Palestine, because she comes from a very wealthy family, And he was the driver for that family. He fell in love with her. They didn't want him to marry her. Then he kidnapped her and married her. And then started his family. So my mother's family originally are from the United of Soviet, and they left. I don't know why. My mother doesn't know why. And they went to Turkey. And in 1914, during the First World War, they fled from Turkey because they were Christians, and they went to Palestine. And that's where my grandfather was. So they moved to Palestine. Now in 1948, which is another important date in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, they fled from Palestine and went to Jordan. And then my grandmother and my grandfather got married, and then they went back to Palestine, and my mother was with them. And in 1967, another important date for Israeli-Palestinian conflict, they left Palestine to Jordan. And since then, my mother lived in Jordan, and she considered Jordan to be her home. But it's interesting for me that a lot of big events in the world affected my mother's side of the family. Next, please. So my mother and my father, they met in Jordan, they got married, and this is my family, my two brothers, my sister, that's on our wedding. My father actually works in Saudi Arabia. Again, Jordan, because it's a very poor country, a lot of people in Jordan go to the Gulf to work, because in the Gulf they pay much, much more than what they get paid in Jordan. I do remember when I was a child, my dad's salary was like $700 as a doctor, and we were happy with that. But now, Amman is one of the most expensive cities in the world. So to survive living in Amman, my dad went to Saudi Arabia 20 years ago, and every year he says, this is my last year. And then it's like, well, let me just save a little bit, and it's been 20 years. And so he goes back and forth between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. I visited Saudi Arabia one time, and I will never go again. Because we had to cover, even if we're Christians, we had to be covered, we had to kind of walk behind my dad like sheep. And I don't like that, so I don't like to go there. My dad is very nervous about being Christian in a very like Jordan has Muslims majority, but we coexist. In Saudi Arabia, Christianity is doesn't probably exist. So my mother visits him every now and then. Now my brothers, my oldest brother, older brother, he's 6 years younger than me. He did not want to be what the society wants him to be. And unfortunately in Jordan we do live to please the society and what they expect from us. But he decided, he did his computer engineering and then went to culinary school secretly. Nobody knew, he told me. But he didn't tell my parents because that's like what's the word? Like yeah, like, what, are you gonna fry eggplants, you know? So, you have to be a doctor and engineer in Jordan to be respected. But he lives in Canada, he's been there since he was 16. He doesn't see himself going back to Jordan ever. He doesn't feel like he can be himself in Jordan. So my other brother is struggling with finding his voice. He still lives with my mom, which everybody does in Jordan. You live with your parents until you get married. If you don't get married, you stay and live with your parents. So he's still with my parents, not sure what to do next. He sometimes feels like, okay, I need to go find my way somewhere else. But I don't know, I'll share with you any development. And then my sister, who is living the typical Jordanian life, which I do not see myself doing. She lives for her husband. She's a dentist. She's a really, really good dentist, well educated. But you know, she has to cook and clean and do this, take care of the kids and pick them up from the school. And sometimes I ask her, like, why don't you let him? No, he needs to sleep in the morning. No, everything's about the husband. I respect men. I don't have a problem with that. But I do feel like women in Jordan, they put themselves, they don't know who they are. Women in Jordan don't spend time discovering themselves because they have to please their husbands. except for me. And so, I do love my husband, but I guess that's why I could not marry a Jordanian. I tried arranged marriages and whatever, like people came and I felt like a sack of potato, but I could not go on with such marriages until I met Chris, and he makes me be who I am. And that for me is the important thing, the most important thing for me in marriage. So yeah, I'm not living her life and whatever. So what's next? So I'm here. How was the transition from being in that kind of culture coming here? This is the view from our house, which should tell you about how like beautiful it is to be here. And I did find my home away from home. This is my home now. We are so lucky to be living next to Allison and Gary. And I'm not just saying this because you guys are here, but we are very fortunate to be living next to them. It was interesting for me to move from different shades of brown to the luscious green in Maine. And I was dizzy when I first visited because it was too much green for me. I'm not used to it. So also moving from living in a house made of stone to houses out of wood was so hard for me to feel safe in. I really struggled with the idea of being in a house made of wood, because what if someone has a chainsaw and cuts through the wood? And like, you know, it didn't fit, because we lived in stones and like concrete buildings, but now I'm better. And so the first thing I did the first year was embracing everything around me. I did a project, committed myself to Facebook, and in every day I took a picture of something, food, people, nature, policemen cars, and so I have this. If you are more than welcome to check it out. It's on my Facebook. The other thing I did, I was so lucky to meet a Jewish grandmother, and coming from my background, I've never met Jewish people in my life. We only read that we have to hate Jewish people. I didn't know why. But so I met this wonderful woman. I got the opportunity to illustrate a children's book with her about the Yiddish culture. So through that project, I got to understand more about her culture, and we found our peace in this corner of the world. And also I wanted to dominate wood and understand wood more. So my father-in-law, Gary, took me to a woodwork shop, and I did, these are my projects. I still go there, but I'm trying to incorporate my culture in the wood. So I have this Arabic calligraphy on this bowl that I made. I don't want to forget where I'm from. I think if you forget where you're from, you're going to be, like, you lose your stability. So I want to embrace my culture with its good and bad, and I want my daughters to learn to accept differences, to love that they are from different cultures, to be global citizens, and to be like open to different cultures. And that's my biggest project now that I live here. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm willing to answer any question if you have time. If you don't, please find me. I can talk more about anything.
Have your parents been here, or have your daughters been to Jordan?
Yes, so my parents came here 2 years ago when I was pregnant, and they stayed with us for a month, and they loved it here. And my daughters, we were in Jordan last summer. My plan is to keep going to Jordan every couple of years. My parents they have a visa for 5 years, so they can come within these 5 years. Yes.
Oh, Jordan was about Israel, so you say you hadn't really even associated with Jewish person?
There are no Jewish people in Jordan. There might be, but the media does not show it, because it's a very sensitive topic to Jordanians, and there are a lot of Palestinians in Jordan. So my mother, I asked her, my brother had a friend who's Jewish, and he wanted to come visit Jordan. And my mother said, I personally don't have a problem. But she said, I'm afraid that people around will be angry with that. So there is fear about having someone Jewish in Jordan. But I think like once I came here and my parents came here and they met one of my very close friends who's also Jewish, and my family don't have a problem, but it's just people around. I don't know if I answered your question. Any other questions? Right.
Are your children bilingual?
Of course they are. Well, no. Well, one of them is. The oldest one, I kind of did not speak Arabic when we moved here because I wanted everybody to know what I'm saying to her. But the youngest, I only speak to her in Arabic. But she's choosing to speak English more. I think English is much easier than Arabic. Arabic has a lot of sounds that are hard, so she's not there yet. But that's my goal. Okay. Well, please find me if you need to know anything more. Thank you so much.